In the year 2347, humanity had reached a new chapter in its history. After centuries of dreaming about the stars, people from Earth were now living on planets far beyond their homeworld. They had built colonies, explored strange new worlds, and even made contact with alien civilizations. But space was not just a place of wonder, it was also a battleground for power, politics, and survival. The Galactic Council was one such battleground. It was an alliance of advanced alien species that ruled over much of the known galaxy. To humans, the Council seemed cold, distant, and often unfair. Despite humanity's rapid progress, the Council treated them like children, reckless, untrustworthy, and unworthy of respect. For years, Earth leaders tried to prove otherwise, but every attempt at diplomacy ended in frustration. That was why Daniel Carter stood before the Council chamber on Nexus Prime, the Council's capital world. He was a tall man with sharp features and calm eyes, known across Earth as one of its finest diplomats. His mission was clear: convince the Council to accept humanity as equals and sign a peace treaty that would protect human colonies from further interference. With him was Elena Ruiz, a brilliant scientist whose knowledge of quantum physics had earned her a spot on this critical mission. Together, they carried the hopes of billions. Nexus Prime was unlike anything Daniel or Elena had ever seen. The planet glowed faintly under twin suns, its skies filled with floating cities and shimmering energy fields. As they walked through the Council's grand hallways, they couldn't help but feel small. Every surface gleamed with alien technology far beyond what humans had achieved. Guards in sleek armor watched them silently, their weapons ready but unused. The air smelled metallic, and the silence between footsteps felt heavy with tension. When they finally entered the Council chamber, the scene took their breath away. A massive circular room stretched high into the sky, its walls lined with holographic displays showing star maps and data streams. At the center sat the Council members themselves, representatives of various alien races seated in towering chairs. Their appearances ranged from insectoid creatures with glowing eyes to beings that looked almost human but had subtle differences: extra limbs, translucent skin, or patterns that shifted like liquid. Daniel stepped forward, his voice steady despite the weight of the moment. "Esteemed members of the Galactic Council," he began, "I come before you today not as an enemy, but as a representative of a species eager to learn, grow, and coexist peacefully." Elena followed, presenting a demonstration of humanity's latest advancements. She showed how humans had mastered faster-than-light travel, developed sustainable energy sources, and created medical technologies that could heal injuries once thought incurable. Her presentation aimed to prove that humanity was no longer the primitive race the Council believed it to be, but the Council wasn't impressed. Instead, murmurs of skepticism filled the room. One member, a tall serpentine creature with scales that shimmered like oil, spoke up. "Your kind spreads too quickly," it hissed. "You invade territories claimed by others. You exploit resources without regard for balance. How can we trust you?" Daniel raised his hands in a gesture of peace. "We acknowledge our past mistakes, but we are learning. We seek only to expand responsibly and contribute to the galactic community." His words fell flat. Another Council member, a bulbous being with multiple eyes and tentacles, chimed in. "Responsible? Your ships have trespassed into zones marked as restricted. Your mining operations disrupt ecosystems vital to other species. These actions cannot go unpunished." Elena tried to intervene, explaining that many incidents were misunderstandings caused by outdated maps or communication failures, but the Council dismissed her arguments. Tensions rose as accusations flew back and forth. The more Daniel and Elena defended humanity, the angrier the Council became. Then came the breaking point. A Council member accused Daniel of espionage, claiming he had brought classified information into the chamber. It was a lie designed to provoke outrage and justify drastic action. Before Daniel could respond, guards surrounded him, their weapons trained on his chest. Elena shouted in protest, but her cries went unheard. "You have betrayed the trust of this Council," declared the serpentine creature, its voice dripping with venom. For this crime there will be no trial, only justice. Daniel's heart sank as he realized what was happening. He turned to Elena, his expression calm despite the chaos. Tell them I did everything I could," he said softly. Before the guards dragged him away, hours later the news spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Daniel Carter, humanity's envoy, had been executed without trial. The Council released a statement calling it a necessary measure to maintain order. To the people of Earth and its colonies, it felt like a declaration of war. Back on Earth, reactions varied. Some called for immediate retaliation, while others urged caution. Sarah Bennett, a young journalist based in New Chicago, covered the story with growing horror. She interviewed families affected by the loss of loved ones who had supported Daniel's mission. She spoke to experts who warned of the consequences of such an act. Each report she filed painted a clearer picture. Humanity was standing on the edge of a precipice, and the next step could change everything. As outrage grew, so did the resolve of Earth's leaders. President William Hayes addressed the nation, his face grim but determined. "This is not just an attack on Daniel Carter," he declared. "It is an attack on all of us. We will not stand idly by while our people are treated as less than equal." Behind closed doors, military leaders began preparing for the worst. Admiral Jameson Blackwood, a veteran strategist, reviewed plans for potential conflicts. Though war seemed inevitable, there was another option one few dared to speak of openly. Project Eclipse, a secret initiative led by Dr. Rachel Monroe, promised to tip the scales in humanity's favor. What it truly entailed remained unknown to most, but whispers hinted at something extraordinary and terrifying. For now, the galaxy held its breath. Humanity had been pushed to its limits, and the response would define its future, whether it chose diplomacy, warfare, or something else entirely. One thing was certain: the execution of Daniel Carter would not be forgotten. The execution of Daniel Carter sent shockwaves across every corner of human civilization. News of his death spread faster than light, carried by communication networks that connected Earth to its farthest colonies. People everywhere were stunned. For many, the Council's actions felt like a slap in the face, a brutal reminder that humanity was still seen as inferior, unworthy of respect or fairness. Anger bubbled up quickly, boiling over into protests, riots, and demands for justice. On Earth, cities erupted in chaos. In New Chicago, where Sarah Bennett worked as a journalist, thousands gathered in the streets. They held signs with messages like "Justice for Daniel" and "No more betrayal." Some chanted slogans calling for war, while others simply stood, silently, holding candles in memory of the envoy who had tried to bridge the gap between humans and aliens. The mood was heavy, a mix of grief and fury. Sarah moved through the crowds, notebook in hand, capturing the raw emotions of the moment. She spoke to people of all ages: young students, factory workers, even elderly veterans who remembered Earth's early days of space exploration. Everyone had something to say, and their words painted a picture of a species pushed to its breaking point. "It's not just about Daniel," one man told her, his voice trembling with emotion. "It's about us. We've done everything they asked. We followed their rules, played by their game, and this is how they repay us. It's not right." Sarah nodded, jotting down his words. She understood the sentiment. Humanity had spent decades trying to prove itself to the Galactic Council, only to be met with disdain and hostility at every turn. Now, with Daniel's execution, patience had run out. Trust was shattered, and the fragile hope of peaceful coexistence seemed lost forever. The situation was no better on the colonies. On Proxima Centauri Prime, miners stopped working and marched toward the Capitol building, demanding answers from their local leaders. On Elysium Station, a massive orbital habitat, shopkeepers closed their businesses and joined demonstrations outside the Council liaison office. Even on distant outposts like Titan Base, where life was harsh and survival was a daily struggle, people found ways to express their anger. They burned effigies of council members, projected holographic messages into space, and vowed never to bow to alien rule again. President William Hayes watched the unfolding events from his office in Geneva. He sat at his desk, staring at screens, filled with live feeds of protests and reports of unrest. His advisors buzzed around him, offering suggestions and warnings, but he barely heard them. His mind was focused on one thing: what to do next. The Council's decision to execute Daniel without trial was an act of blatant aggression, and the people of Earth expected their leader to respond. Silence was not an option. Hayes called an emergency meeting with his top advisors and military leaders. The room was tense as everyone took their seats. Admiral Jameson Blackwood, a grizzled veteran with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor, leaned forward. "Mr. President," he said, his voice low but firm, "we can't let this stand. If we don't act, the Council will see us as weak. And if they think we're weak, they'll keep pushing until there's nothing left of us." Others nodded in agreement, but not everyone shared Blackwood. The situation was dire, and President William Hayes knew it. The Council's execution of Daniel Carter had pushed humanity to the brink. Protests continued across Earth and its colonies, and calls for retaliation grew louder every day. But Hayes understood that war with the Galactic Council would be catastrophic. Humanity might have advanced technology, but the Council's resources and firepower were far superior. A direct confrontation could lead to the complete annihilation of human civilization. Something else was needed, something extraordinary. In a secure underground facility near Geneva, Hayes met with Dr. Rachel Monroe, the brilliant scientist behind Project Eclipse. Rachel was a quiet woman in her late 40s, with sharp eyes and a calm demeanor that masked the weight of her responsibilities. She had spent decades working on classified projects, always pushing the boundaries of what was possible. Now she stood before the president, ready to reveal the culmination of her life's work. "Mr. President," Rachel began, her voice steady, "what I'm about to show you isn't just a weapon. It's a tool capable of rewriting history itself." Hayes raised an eyebrow. "Rewriting history? That sounds extreme." "It is," Rachel admitted, "but we're past the point of diplomacy. If the Council refuses to back down, this may be our only option." She led Hayes and his advisors into a dimly lit chamber where a massive machine dominated the room. The device looked like a fusion of sleek metal panels and glowing energy conduits. At its center was a pulsating orb, shifting colors as if alive. Rachel explained that the machine operated on principles of quantum mechanics, manipulating time and causality in ways most people couldn't comprehend. "Project Eclipse doesn't destroy," Rachel said. "It unravels. When activated, targets specific timelines and erases them from existence. For all intents and purposes, the targeted events and everything connected to them never happened." The room fell silent as everyone processed her words. Admiral Jameson Blackwood, who had accompanied Hayes, broke the silence. "You mean we could make the Council disappear? Just wipe them out of history?" Rachel nodded. "Exactly. But there's a catch. Once used, the effects are permanent. We can't undo it, and we can't predict every consequence. Erasing the Council means erasing their entire civilization, their planets, their people, everything they've ever built." Hayes rubbed his temples, feeling the enormity of the decision pressing down on him. "And what happens to us? To humanity?" "We remain untouched," Rachel replied. "Our timeline stays intact because we're not directly tied to theirs. But the ripple effects could still be significant. Other civilizations might rise to fill the void left by the Council. Or chaos could spread across the galaxy. There's no way to know for sure." The president turned to his advisors, seeking their input. Some argued that using Project Eclipse was too dangerous, that humanity wasn't ready to wield such power. Others insisted it was the only way to ensure survival. After hours of heated debate, Hayes made his choice. "If the Council continues to ignore our demands, we'll activate Project Eclipse," he declared. "But first we give them one last chance." A message was sent to Nexus Prime, the Council's capital world. In it, Hayes issued an ultimatum: rescind the execution order, issue a public apology, and recognize humanity's sovereignty or face annihilation. The Council's response came swiftly. They dismissed the threat as empty posturing, accusing humans of bluffing. Their arrogance sealed their fate. Back at the facility, Rachel prepared to activate Project Eclipse. Technicians worked tirelessly, running final checks on the machine. Sarah Bennett, the journalist who had covered the fallout of Daniel's execution, managed to sneak into the facility. With the help of a sympathetic insider, she wanted to understand what humanity was about to unleash. What you're doing. It's terrifying, Sarah said to Rachel as they stood near the machine. Are you sure this is the right thing? Rachel sighed. I don't know if it's right. All I know is that we've tried everything else. Diplomacy failed. Patience failed. If we do nothing, the council will crush us. This is our last hope. Sarah didn't respond. She watched as Rachel approached the control panel, her hands hovering over the activation switch. On a nearby screen, a countdown timer ticked away, signaling the final moments before the machine would come online. Meanwhile, on Nexus Prime, the council members remained oblivious to the storm brewing around them. They gathered in their grand chamber, discussing how to deal with the human problem. Some suggested launching preemptive strikes against human colonies. Others argued for blockades and economic sanctions. None of them realized that their very existence was about to end. As the countdown reached 0, Rachel pressed the button. The machine roared to life, its energy core glowing brighter with each passing second. The ground trembled and the air crackled with electricity. Everyone in the room shielded their eyes as the orb at the center of the device pulsed violently, releasing waves of light that seemed to stretch into infinity. For a brief moment, reality itself seemed to shift. Then everything went still. Across the galaxy, the effects were immediate. Nexus Prime vanished without a trace. The council members, their floating cities, their armies all gone. Records of their civilization disappeared from databases, leaving behind only fragments of legends and half-forgotten myths. Smaller alien species, once oppressed by the council, found themselves free for the first time in centuries. The balance of power in the galaxy had shifted overnight. On Earth, reactions were mixed. While many celebrated the council's disappearance, others were horrified by what humanity had done. Sarah wrote an article detailing the ethical dilemmas surrounding Project Eclipse, sparking debates about whether the ends justified the means. Her words resonated with millions, forcing people to confront uncomfortable truths about their actions. President Hayes addressed the nation, acknowledging the moral cost of their victory. We did what we had to do to survive, he said. But let this be a lesson. Never again should we find ourselves in a position where such drastic measures are necessary. From this day forward, we must strive to be better not just for ourselves, but for the galaxy. Admiral Blackwood echoed these sentiments, warning that other civilizations might view humanity's actions as monstrous. He urged caution, reminding everyone that the galaxy was watching. Despite the uncertainty, humanity took its first steps toward rebuilding trust. Diplomatic envoys reached out to neighboring species, offering aid and cooperation. Slowly but surely, the scars of the past began to heal. For now, the galaxy remained quiet. Humanity stood alone, its future unwritten. The memory of Daniel Carter served as a reminder of the sacrifices made for justice and the responsibility to ensure they were never repeated. When Project Eclipse activated, the galaxy changed in ways no one could have fully predicted. The machine, hidden deep beneath the Earth's surface, pulsed with an energy that defied explanation. Its waves of quantum disruption spread outward, like ripples in a pond, rewriting the very fabric of reality. For those who witnessed it, the event was both awe-inspiring and terrifying. It wasn't loud or violent, it was eerily silent, as if the universe itself was holding its breath. On Nexus Prime, the Council's capital world, life continued as usual until the final moments. Council members debated humanity's ultimatum, their voices filled with arrogance and dismissal. They never saw the end coming. One moment they were seated in their grand chamber, surrounded by glowing holograms and alien guards. The next, everything simply ceased to exist. The floating cities, the sprawling landscapes, the billions of lives tied to the council, all of it vanished without a trace. There were no explosions, no screams, no signs of destruction. It was as if Nexus Prime had never been there at all. The ripple effects spread across the galaxy. On planets governed by the Council, confusion reigned. Colonies once under strict control found themselves suddenly free, their overlords erased from existence. Smaller alien species, long oppressed by the Council's dominance, began emerging from the shadows. Some celebrated their newfound freedom, while others struggled to adapt to the sudden power vacuum. Trade routes collapsed, communication networks faltered, and entire economies teetered on the edge of chaos. For humanity, the aftermath was a mix of triumph and unease. News of the Council's disappearance spread quickly, carried by ships and signals that crisscrossed the stars. People on Earth and its colonies reacted in different ways. In New Chicago, crowds gathered in the streets, cheering and lighting fireworks. Sarah Bennett, the journalist who had followed the story from the beginning, watched the celebrations with a heavy heart. She couldn't shake the feeling that something monumental and deeply unsettling had just happened. "It's not right," she muttered to herself as she stood on her apartment balcony staring at the night sky. "We've crossed a line. What gives us the right to decide who lives and who doesn't exist?" Her thoughts echoed those of many others. While some hailed Project Eclipse as humanity's greatest achievement, others questioned the morality of erasing an entire civilization. Debates raged in homes, workplaces, and government halls. Was this justice or was it revenge? Had humanity become the very thing it had fought against? President William Hayes faced these questions head-on. He called a global address, speaking to billions of people across Earth and its colonies. Standing before cameras, his expression was somber but resolute. "Today marks a turning point in our history," he began. "We acted to protect ourselves, to ensure our survival when all other options had failed. But let us not fool ourselves into thinking this was an easy choice or a clean victory. The cost of what we've done is immense, and it will weigh on us for generations." His words struck a chord with many. Admiral Jameson Blackwood, who had supported the use of Project Eclipse, also voiced his concerns during a private meeting with Hayes. "Sir," he said, "we've sent a message to the Galaxy One that says we're willing to do whatever it takes to protect ourselves. But now every species out there will be watching us. Some might see us as heroes, others might see us as monsters." Hayes nodded grimly, "And we'll have to live with that. Our job now is to prove that we're neither. We need to show the galaxy that we're ready to lead not through fear, but through cooperation." Dr. Rachel Monroe, the scientist behind Project Eclipse, retreated from the public eye after the activation. The weight of what she had created and unleashed was almost too much to bear. She spent long hours alone in her lab, staring at the deactivated machine. Sometimes she wondered if she had made the right choice. Other times she convinced herself that there had been no other way. Humanity had been backed into a corner, and Project Eclipse had been its only escape. Sarah Bennett decided to dig deeper into the story. She traveled to distant colonies and alien worlds, documenting the impact of the Council's disappearance. On Proxima Centauri Prime, miners celebrated their liberation, painting murals of human envoys as saviors. On Elysium Station, shopkeepers reopened their businesses, grateful for the end of oppressive trade laws. But not everyone was happy. On Titan Base, a small group of aliens gathered in secret, plotting revenge against humanity. They saw the erasure of the Council as an act of aggression, proof that humans were as dangerous as the Council had claimed. As Sarah spoke to people across the galaxy, she noticed a pattern. Fear was fading, replaced by curiosity and caution. Species that had once lived in the Council's shadow were now stepping forward, eager to forge new alliances. Some approached humanity with open arms, hoping to learn from their technology and governance. Others kept their distance, wary of trusting a species capable of such power. Back on Earth, efforts began to rebuild trust. Diplomatic teams reached out to neighboring civilizations, offering aid and resources. Scientists shared knowledge, engineers built infrastructure, and educators exchanged ideas. Slowly, bridges were formed where walls had once stood. But progress was slow and tensions lingered. Many alien species still viewed humanity with suspicion, wondering if they would one day face the same fate as the Council. Despite the challenges, humanity took steps toward a brighter future. President Hayes announced the creation of the Galactic Accord, a new alliance designed to promote peace and cooperation among species. Unlike the Council, which had ruled through dominance, the Accord aimed to operate on principles of equality and mutual respect. It was an ambitious goal, but Hayes believed it was necessary. "We've been given a second chance," he told his advisors during a strategy meeting. "Let's not waste it. Let's show the galaxy that we're not just survivors, we're builders. We can create something better than what came before." Admiral Blackwood agreed, though he remained cautious. "We need to stay vigilant." He warned, "Not everyone will welcome us with open arms. There will be challenges ahead, and we need to be ready." Rachel Monroe eventually emerged from her self-imposed isolation, joining discussions about the future of humanity's role in the galaxy. She urged leaders to dismantle Project Eclipse entirely, ensuring that its secrets would never fall into the wrong hands. Her argument was simple: if humanity wanted to earn trust, it had to renounce the tools of destruction it had created. Sarah's reporting played a crucial role in shaping public opinion. Her articles highlighted both the achievements and the moral dilemmas of humanity's actions. She interviewed scientists, politicians, soldiers, and ordinary citizens, capturing a wide range of perspectives. Her work sparked conversations about ethics, responsibility, and the kind of legacy humanity wanted to leave behind. By the time months had passed, the galaxy had begun to stabilize. Without the Council's iron grip, smaller civilizations thrived. Trade routes reopened, diplomacy flourished, and exploration expanded. Humanity, once seen as reckless and untrustworthy, started to earn a reputation as a force for good, or at least as a species trying to do better, but the scars of the past remained. The memory of Daniel Carter, the envoy whose execution had sparked humanity's drastic response, served as a reminder of the cost of injustice. And the shadow of Project Eclipse loomed large, a warning of the dangers of wielding power without restraint. For now, the galaxy stood at a crossroads. Humanity had proven it could survive, even thrive, in the face of overwhelming odds. But the real test lay ahead. Could it rise above its flaws and build a future worth fighting for? Only time would tell. Months passed, and the galaxy slowly adjusted to its new reality. The absence of the Galactic Council left a void that no one could fully fill. For decades, the Council had been both a ruler and a stabilizing force, imposing order even as it oppressed. Without it, the stars seemed quieter but also more uncertain. Humanity, once dismissed as an upstart species, now found itself in an unfamiliar position, leading by example rather than following orders. President William Hayes worked tirelessly to guide humanity through this fragile period. He knew the decisions made now would shape not just Earth's future, but the future of the entire galaxy. Every speech he gave, every policy he enacted, carried the weight of responsibility. "We are not here to dominate," he often said. "We are here to coexist, to learn, to grow together." But coexistence wasn't easy. While some alien species welcomed humanity's efforts to rebuild trust, others remained cautious or outright hostile. On Proxima Centauri Prime, miners who had initially celebrated their liberation began to resent human oversight. They accused Earth's envoys of replacing the Council's tyranny with their own brand of control. Similar tensions flared on other worlds where aliens viewed humanity's aid as thinly veiled attempts at colonization. Sarah Bennett traveled extensively during this time, documenting the successes and failures of humanity's outreach programs. She visited colonies where humans and aliens worked side by side, building schools, hospitals, and trade networks. She also witnessed moments of conflict, arguments over resources, misunderstandings rooted in cultural differences, and occasional outbreaks of violence. Her reports painted a complex picture of a galaxy struggling to find its footing. One day, Sarah arrived on a distant moon called Callus 4. It was home to a reclusive species known as the Valens, aquatic beings with translucent skin and bioluminescent patterns that shifted with their emotions. The Valens had avoided contact with the Council for centuries, fearing exploitation of their unique biology. Now they cautiously opened their doors to humanity, curious about these newcomers who claimed to seek peace. Sarah met with a Valen elder named Solora, who communicated through a translator device. "Why should we trust you?" Solora asked, her glowing patterns flickering with suspicion. "You erased the council, yes? You have great power. How do we know you will not turn it against us?" Sarah thought carefully before responding. "I can't promise you that everyone in my species is good or trustworthy," she admitted. "But I can tell you this, many of us are trying to do better. We've made mistakes, terrible ones, but we're learning from them. That's why we're here, talking to you instead of forcing ourselves into your lives." Solora studied her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Perhaps, but trust is earned, not given." The conversation stayed with Sarah long after she left Kalis 4. It reminded her of something Admiral Jameson Blackwood had said during one of his briefings. "We can't expect forgiveness overnight. What we can do is show up, stay consistent, and prove ourselves worthy of it." Back on Earth, debates continued about Project Eclipse. Dr. Rachel Monroe led the effort to dismantle the machine, ensuring its secrets would never be used again. She argued passionately that humanity's survival depended not on weapons of mass destruction, but on the strength of its character. "If we want others to see us as equals," she told President Hayes, "we need to act like equals. That means letting go of fear and embracing cooperation." Hayes agreed. Though he faced opposition from military leaders who believed keeping Project Eclipse intact was necessary for defense. What if another threat arises? Admiral Blackwood asked during a heated meeting. "Do we really want to destroy our only insurance policy?" "We're not destroying it lightly," Hayes replied. "But holding on to it sends the wrong message. If we truly believe in peace, we have to take risks. Trust isn't built on fear, it's built on vulnerability." In the end, Hayes sided with Rachel. The machine was disassembled piece by piece, its components sealed away in secure facilities scattered across Earth. Only a handful of people knew their locations, and strict protocols were put in place to prevent any attempt at reconstruction. As news of Project Eclipse's dismantling spread, reactions varied. Some praised the decision as a step toward redemption. Others criticized it as naive, warning that humanity was leaving itself vulnerable to future threats. Sarah wrote an article exploring both perspectives, highlighting the delicate balance between idealism and pragmatism. Meanwhile, the Galactic Accord gained momentum. More species joined the alliance, drawn by promises of equality and mutual benefit. Representatives from dozens of civilizations gathered on Earth for the first Accord Summit, a historic event aimed at drafting shared laws and principles. The summit was far from perfect. Disagreements arose frequently, and progress was slow, but it marked the beginning of a new era. At the closing ceremony, President Hayes addressed the assembly. "This is not the end," he said. "It's the start of a journey toward understanding, respect, and unity. None of us knows what lies ahead, but if we face it together, I believe we can create something extraordinary." His words resonated deeply, earning applause from the crowd. Among those listening was Elena Ruiz, Daniel Carter's former partner on the ill-fated mission to Nexus Prime. She had returned to science after the tragedy, pouring her energy into research projects designed to improve life across the galaxy. Though she rarely spoke about Daniel publicly, his memory fueled her determination to honor his sacrifice. "I wish he could see this," Elena confided to Sarah after the ceremony. "He gave everything to bring humanity closer to the rest of the galaxy. I think he'd be proud of how far we've come." Sarah smiled softly. "He'd probably remind us there's still a long way to go." Elena nodded. "Yes, but at least we're moving forward." For all its challenges, humanity's role in the galaxy had changed forever. Once seen as reckless and unworthy, humans were now viewed as flawed but hopeful, a species capable of both great harm and great good. The scars of the past remained, but they served as reminders rather than burdens. The execution of Daniel Carter had ignited a fire within humanity, driving it to fight for justice not just for itself, but for others. On Earth, children learned about the Council's erasure in school, not as a story of triumph but as a lesson in accountability. Teachers emphasized the importance of ethical leadership, encouraging students to imagine a world where such drastic measures weren't needed. Artists created murals depicting Daniel Carter as a symbol of courage and sacrifice. Musicians composed songs about the cost of peace and the value of unity. Out among the stars, humanity continued to explore, to build, and to dream. Colonies expanded, alliances strengthened, and knowledge grew. The galaxy was still vast and unpredictable, filled with mysteries waiting to be uncovered. But for the first time in history, humanity approached it not as conquerors, but as partners. As Sarah stood on the balcony of her apartment one evening, gazing at the night sky, she felt a sense of cautious optimism. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but it was a road worth traveling. Humanity had proven it could rise above its flaws. Now it had to prove it could stay there. And so, under the watchful eyes of billions, humanity stepped into the future one small, uncertain step at a time.